2. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Last Newsdesk on the Left. I am your host, Mac Paladin, and as you can tell by the enthusiasm in my voice, this is a good week. Joining me in the studio is my partner in crime, Adam.
Hallelujah, Jesus. Joseph and Mary, it is a new day.
Our ever tweeting partner in crime, Kevin.
America, you can breathe again.
It's morning in America. Whoa,
Yes,
shit, that was the wrong reference.
I guess it actually works in this case.
Indeed. We actually found an old episode of MSP where I did that right at the top instead of actually saying you're listening to Moonhawk Studios Presents. I said, "Well, America, it's morning in America." Yeah.
That doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I'm starting to sound more like Clint Eastwood in Heartbreak Ridge. Let me get on to the other intros, which is another conservative icon. All right, Petty Fan is in the hizzy.
Yes, I am. Maybe. Where are we again?
Our ever-present Gundam aficionado, the Golics.
Hello.
And, of course, Twilight Winter.
Hello.
All right. From the land of KY. No, that is not a reference I want to make. Sorry. All right. Hopefully we have a great show for you tonight. I know we're going to be a lot more relaxed. To be honest with you, I don't know if the fans prefer us to be more animated and vulgar. But Adam, why don't you get us started here?
Well, I'm sure there will be things that will angry up the blood.
Right.
But, obviously, if you are existing in this time and space and aren't completely up the Q hole, let's say.
Wow.
Although,
first dislike.
Like,
maybe even if you are, because they're melting down today.
Yeah, like Joseph Biden Jr. is our 46th president. It's
officially at last.
Yes. The maggots have failed officially, and the screaming orange nightmare is a small broken man now.
Do we even have to call him a man?
Soon to be getting even more orange to clash with his body paint.
Yep. Well, Trump has a world of shit to look forward to because, there are all the loans that are due. There are all the lawsuits that are still pending. There are all still the criminal charges that are waiting in the wings that he's no longer immune to. And nobody's going to protect his ass. I'm like, and there's still his impeachment trial, which is still a thing that is going to happen.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it kind of has to now because they sent the articles, or they're going to.
Actually, they haven't transmitted it yet, but that should be happening, I guess, maybe tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, they said they were waiting until after the inauguration to transmit the article. But
because we want Democrats to control this trial, not Republicans.
Yeah, that was another thing that we were waiting on, not just Biden becoming president, because, well, I'll let Kevin handle this section since he's kind of pertinent to it.
Yep.
So, where do you want to go here?
The Senate. The senators from Georgia.
Yes. After the inauguration pomp and circumstance, everybody went to their separate corners and went to work. Joe Biden signed 17 executive orders, and meanwhile, more important to yours truly here from this state, we got ourselves 2 new Democratic senators, Mr. John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, the Reverend still of Ebenezer Baptist Church, and he's going to be doing that every Sunday, I guess, while he's still senator. And also Kamala's replacement, in the Senate from California, the former Sec of State Alex Padilla also was sworn in today. So you had Kamala becoming VP, you had those 2 Georgia senators, and also you had Alex Padilla, and that means that we have a 50-50 split in the United States Senate. And in that situation, the Democrats are in control due to the VP breaking ties. It's pretty much a case of um, in terms of the committees, based upon the 2001 rules, which was the last time we had a situation like this. It will be equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans on every committee, with Democrats being the chair people, and tie votes in those committees would essentially be the same thing as an acceptance and go straight to the floor, where in the case of a tie there, again, it would go to Kamala to break the tie.
Unfortunately, that depends on being able to get the entire party to vote for the same thing, which doesn't always work so hot. But it's
I mean, Manchin from West Virginia being a sticking point. But yeah,
I think actually you're going to be surprised about how not problematic will be, because basically it's one word that you're going to hear a lot: pork. Give Manchin whatever he wants for his state. Give him whatever he wants, whatever he asks for. Chances are you'll get his vote.
That's true,
because that's basically what it is. I mean,
he's a cheap lay.
Yeah, he. You know what? It's funny. He's basically our Susan Collins.
Yeah. No question.
In a lot of ways. So yeah. I mean, we have a Democratic trifecta for at least 2 years. We're gonna make this. We're gonna make this thing count, because we're already getting guns blazing out the gate with COVID relief on the plate, and also immigration reform on the plate now too. So
back in the Paris Climate Accord, back working our way back into the Iran nuclear deal, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and also
that first day executive order slate
17
goes a long way towards making some improvements to stuff that had been not good.
Yeah.
In other news, I finally got my stimulus check today. It was a card.
Yeah, that's apparently what it is. It's a debit card. People are getting.
They closed my original bank account. See, that's for some reason they didn't send me a paper check. For some inexplicable reason, they sent me a card, because what happened was my old bank account got closed due to negativity, which is really bad because that was a really great account.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But you see, they haven't come after me for collections because of the fact that 98% of the negativity was fees. If they came at me, I would just say, well, if you just reverse that $340 worth of fees, I'll gladly pay you the $21 difference.
Yes. I mean, yes, I owe you $500, but out of that, $450 is you don't have over $100 in your account fee.
Personally, like buying a Snickers bar and then getting a $34 charge. That's one thing. That's one thing that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party has been talking about. That I'm like, you know what? I'm actually for that.
Yeah,
significantly reducing or eliminating bank fees entirely. It's like, it's your fucking job. Just help us out. Either don't pay the bill.
You're already getting interest on the fucking money.
Right. It's like, either don't pay the bill, or give us a little grace. Not asking for a free ride. Just give us a little grace so we can get back on our feet. If we do $100 charge and you give us $300 in charges, what do you think the chances are of me bringing my account back to solvency are?
Yeah.
And that's for everybody. That's not just for me. That's not a selfish concern. Virtually everybody in this room understands financial hardship and stuff like that. So, I'm not going to belabor the point, but it's like, you've all experienced it in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And not because you're all spendthrifty. I make a lot of impulse buys, but 80 to 90% of my debt is me floating the electric bill on the credit card for, a year straight. that kind of thing.
Sure,
And
I'd
electric
be
bill.
as bad or worse situation if I didn't have parents that let me live with them, and I can tolerate living with them.
Yeah, my parents live in a 55 and over community. That's a no-go for me. They're like, well, now that you're over 40, you can live here, but you have to leave the cats behind and don't bring any of your stuff. And I was like, thanks, Mom. Love you.
Yeah. Have fun.
And she's the liberal in my parents' branch of the family. My dad's just like, look, just tell me how much you need and I'll put it in your account. And he's the one registered as the Republican.
Well, that's a very Republican way of solving that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to go? So do you want to go over the last transgression of Trump, i.e., his last-minute pardons, or
that was egregious. I mean, I've heard of 11th hour pardons, but holy shit, over 143.
And one of them is that one of them was the pardoning Bannon for the fucking fleecing a bunch of Trump supporters to allegedly build a private funded fucking border wall, but then actually just take the money.
Although, isn't there a silver lining here? Doesn't that also mean that if Congress subpoenas them, not only can he not block them, but they also can't plead the fifth?
Yeah.
It reduces the ability to plead the fifth, yes.
Yeah,
so
funny you mention that because
you can't incriminate yourself if you've been.
Wait. Adam,
let me finish.
Sorry.
Okay, so Bannon got pardoned. His 3 partners in crime did not.
Oh.
So he's probably going to be compelled to testify against them. And yeah, he can't plead the fifth there because the acceptance of pardon is the
in and of itself an admission of guilt.
Well, no, it's because something like that. It's the Fifth Amendment is protection against self-incrimination, and if you can't do that if you've already been prevented from being incriminated.
Yeah, it's also why if you get convicted of a felony and you get pardoned, you can't get that vacated, as Joe Apiro found out.
Apiro, yeah.
Yeah, he tried to get his conviction expunged, and the court was like, "No, you got pardoned. That means you got clemency, but that doesn't mean the crime didn't happen. And you didn't get convicted. It's still on your record." Bannon was the biggest one, arguably, either him or Lil Wayne. And you might be wondering why that name jumped out. Okay, first of all,
do we want to go Lil Wayne, or do we want to go Kodak Black?
Let's go with both of them because they're both.
Let's go both.
Because they are both the other pardoned participants that were hyped. It was like Steve Bannon and famous rappers.
Yeah. Steve Bannon, Elliot Brody, the ex-RNC financier, 2 rappers. I get the former, I think it was the mayor of Detroit. I'm not sure. Kwame Kilpatrick, and a bunch of others.
But there were some notable exclusions. I suppose, like chief among them, Trump himself and his family. They did not get pardoned.
Although the possibility does exist that maybe it's a quote secret pardon unquote that the presidents apparently have the power to do to keep them secret, and then when federal people try to start getting into it, it's like surprise.
So here's the problem with that. That doesn't actually work because Joe Biden's president now, and here's what the law says about pardons. You have to transmit the pardon in order for it to be accepted.
That's right.
This has been there was a court case in like 1864 about that. Grant pardoned like a couple of people, and they didn't get the actual physical documents. And the court ruled that since they didn't get the document, they weren't pardoned. So if they've got pardon papers there and they're secret, they're not valid. And Biden can fucking reverse pardons that have not happened. So
Yeah.
you know, if that's a harebrained scheme they cooked up, it's it's probably done due to their
Yeah, and again,
it's like
with the presidential self pardon, it's never happened before. So it'd be
self-pardon.
like uncharted territory, and the Biden administration can
Yeah.
pretty much challenge that in court. So
Yeah, self-pardon is a separate question because it's
so
once again,
it wouldn't be a separate question in this case because, like I said, it would be secret. But yeah, and in any event, it's a self pardon is uncharted territory and would be challenged in court anyway. So
it's it's derived of the idea of you cannot be on both sides of the table. It's going all the way back to the kingly version of the pardon. It's like the king cannot pardon crimes against the king.
right.
Well, the difference is that a king actually, yeah, I know the British would dispute this because they did try and convict their own king at some point, on multiple occasions, actually. But the idea from the king's point of view is that they don't have to pardon themselves because they're immune from treason.
Right.
Because l'état c'est moi.
Yeah.
Something like that, yes.
Right, and that's something that got changed with the trial of King Charles I.
That was the Magna Carta.
Well, no, it was in the Magna Carta. King Charles I actually tried that defense, and the court basically ignored it and fucking executed him. It's something like there's a whole video, there's a 2-video part series about that, but that's kind of deviating away of what we're talking about here. Point is,
no, I was just pointing out a historical parallel. That's all.
Right. The self pardon is a can the president pardon crimes against himself, basically, or something to that effect? I forget the actual.
I mean, Trump's legal advisors have told him repeatedly that it is possible, but then again, how many times have they been wrong?
Yeah,
I stopped counting.
Or wait, I think they actually told him that you kind of could do this, but you shouldn't.
It'll only prolong the inevitable.
If you do this, you will be opening an extreme box.
Yeah. Yes, it's basically you could, but you shouldn't, and you can't, and you shouldn't, and you mustn't.
By the way, speaking of criminal activities and sedition against the country, how did that articles of impeachment on day one against Joe Biden go?
What?
Well,
another one of Kevin's favorite Congress people.
Yeah, a couple of the fuckheads were talking about, we're gonna impeach Biden for.
No, not just anyone. My congresswoman, and I hate to say that, and
her and Boebert, wasn't it?
No, she was the one who kickstarted it. No, she was the one who literally went on that B-rated cable news network that wants to beat Fox and apparently is scaring Fox to death. What,
Newsmax?
Yes. No, but she went on.
Sorry, I said a bad word on the air. Go ahead.
She went on Newsmax and kickstarted that whole "I'm going to impeach Biden on the first day." It's like, yeah, sure, whatever, Chief.
Meanwhile, she was laughed out of the chamber.
I hate to do speculative reporting, but I have a question about that. They've said for years, if we start the impeachments now, it's just going to be tossed back and forth. And we had a long reprieve since Clinton, before Trump. It's like, are we going to weaponize the impeachment now? Is that going to be a thing? Like in 2 years, then they're going to put it back on the table if somehow the Republicans take the House?
Look, what the Republicans do, that's on them. It's none of our concern. The fact of the matter was, we had to impeach him the first time because he clearly broke the law, and we had to impeach him this time because, he clearly broke the law.
There can't be spite impeachments. I mean, technically there can, but it's bad for.
No, I'm just asking if everybody's thinking that's going to be the new normal. Is that how it's going to be now? It's like every time they disagree with the president, they just fuck that guy. We're going to impeach him.
I would like to think that even if the Republicans do spite impeachments now, that the Democrats will not do spite impeachments in return unless they're really warranted. It's just that in this case, impeaching him only twice was like severely holding back.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that we Democrats don't do spite impeachments. We
Yeah.
just don't.
Well, here's the thing.
The first impeachment and then this impeachment, these aren't spite impeachments. It's like you have to impeach him in order to put a check on this man.
Right.
Okay,
Even the first impeachment was extremely holding back. They were not really going to impeach him until he literally got fucking caught on tape asking a foreign country to fucking interfere in politics for him.
Okay.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm just saying that if the Republicans go ahead and do it this time around, when the Democrats regain control, are they going to have to constantly keep putting their thumb on the scale in order to put a stop to this?
No, they're not going to. We're not going to have a back and forth of spite impeachments if the Republicans decide to impeach Biden over that damn laptop that apparently they're starting to kick around again.
Jesus Christ. The one that doesn't actually even belong to him or his son?
Yep, that same one. Apparently, Sean Hannity is going to be talking to the laptop handler tomorrow night on the show. So.
No, we should call him the laptop wrangler and make a graphic of whoever they pick wearing a cowboy hat and chaps.
Yeah,
You put too much thought into this.
back and forth.
All of 5 seconds.
Too much thought into this.
It's good to be. It's good to be back to stupid bad instead of oh my god we're all gonna go nuts bad. It's good to it's good to be laughable bad again.
I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired of this because this is the weirdest acceptance phase I've ever seen in the denial pattern. You know, where people are constantly like, "No, they stole the election from us. Okay, we lost. Well, they're criminals. Yeah, they're just as bad as our guy. I mean, we knew our guy was bad, but your guy, whoo, you know." And it's just like, what planet do you think the rest of us are living on? What fucking planet do you think the rest of us are living on that our memory is that short? We're not cats.
Yeah.
It's actually more like now you know how we felt 4 years ago when your guy won. This is exactly how we felt. Doesn't feel good, does it?
Except the Democrats didn't.
Right.
An apples and oranges situation.
Capital or
we didn't do all of that, but
they hired a criminal. We didn't.
Yeah. I'm just more talking about the fact that they stole the election and everything else, but we didn't go to literally trying to have insurrection.
You know what's kind of funny about the 2016 election is that Trump got to the top of the heap by effectively pulling a page out of the John McCain handbook.
Huh?
And that was nullifying his opponents. He never got an actual majority. He never got a plurality of votes in the Republican caucuses. He just got more votes than everybody else.
That's what
individually.
Plurality is. You meant majority.
Well, that's majority. Yeah, he never got a true majority. He only got a plurality.
He basically got enough people from all of these 17, 16 candidates to add to his, what was it, like 30-35% base that he's always had.
Right.
Basically, he's just simply added on to that with a couple of percent from this candidate and that candidate, and none of the so-called never Trump people decided to coalesce around anybody, and they stuck to their own teams. And by the time they figured out that Trump is at the pinnacle, it's like, oh no, we can't stop him.
Well, apparently that was a John McCain move back in the day. I used to have a regular customer who used to talk about this because he was an investigative reporter. He's in his 80s now, but he used to be an investigative reporter, and like his mission in life was taking down John McCain. And it was kind of interesting because McCain would go in there and they would clown car the senatorial debates, the senatorial primaries, and he never got 50% in his career. Never once got 50% or more in his entire career. He was always in the low 30s. But kept getting reelected because, he was the only Republican on the ticket for that seat.
Yeah.
When the dust settled after that. But they would put these crazy people like I mean, like Kelly Ward.
Who ironically is now the head of the Arizona Republican Party and might be getting sued by Dominion voting system. So,
right, she was one of them.
For what?
yeah,
They
Kelly
pull
Ward.
out the insanest, most ridiculous people. Like, it's like just lay out the check boxes: QAnon, anti-vaxxers, Tea Party, hardcore libertarianism, just whatever, flagrant racists.
Mhm.
Sometimes all of the above, just whatever they could, and then he would literally just point across the podiums like, "Look at the crazy I'm up against. Vote for me."
Well, actually, with Kelly Ward, it wasn't really that because if you recall, he did that "build the damn wall" ad. Remember?
Yeah,
So basically, for that election, he decided to go a little bit harder to the right in order to cut her off.
right.
So
Well, that's one time though, because every other time it's like he had never won an election.
mm,
He had never truly won an election. He always won it by default.
yeah, but yeah,
Because Arizona doesn't have a runoff system like Georgia.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that trick works. And McConnell did the same thing several times.
Uh,
Where he packed the Republican ticket so that way he would be the clear not nuts person.
mm-hmm.
So they would get I mean, it's, you know what, I'm not going to get us banned from the channel by using an Alex Jones term. I'll say it in the post.
Yeah.
I'll say it in the private chat, and then you guys can chuckle, and then we'll all smile knowingly.
Yeah.
Right.
Hold on, let me find private business here.
Yeah. Anyway.
Wait. Jeez.
Yeah. That works.
I can't say that on the air; it'll get us banned.
That's the devil for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get in trouble for me even invoking the name of Satan himself.
Yeah. Only
I'm
if we do
sorry.
it once. Only if we do it once.
I apologize if that happens.
But anyway.
But that's essentially what they would do is they would create a clown car situation, and they've been and the Democrats did that too this time around. And that's what's so sad about the whole thing is, did we really have the best possible representation up there? Is Joe Biden really the best we had? I mean,
Well,
across the entire stable of every Democratic politician ever.
well, you know me, my Joe Biden was not on my list until it became clear that the the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is that we actually coalesce
Right.
when push comes to shove. Like we made it very when we clearly saw that the only candidate that could both win the primary and then probably win the general was Joe Biden. We immediately made that happen.
When he was
Us and the Republicans. When the Republicans had a large field of governors, senators, of a wide spectrum of the party, and also Donald Trump on the edge there. When Donald Trump was starting to get like 5-10% of each candidate's support, the party did not coalesce around any of the other 16 candidates, 17 candidates, I don't remember when it was.
Yeah.
They did not coalesce. They could have gone with Jeb or Marco. They could have gone with Christie. They could have gone with anybody. But they didn't coalesce when their guy went down. They decided to just screw around, hoping amongst hope that, one of these other candidates, without having to coalesce around them, would stand up for him or herself. That's not how it worked. Because the base of the party, which is Trump's 30 to 35 base solid, and 5 to 10 to 15% of the other candidates, they went to Trump. Trump got enough to get the nomination, and it was too late to go against him. And some of them decided to go never Trump, but the vast majority of them decided to suck it up because they wanted to beat Hillary so bad.
Aside from being a celebrity, Trump did also spend damn near a decade. Well, let's say since his other failed run for presidency in 1999, 2000,
Yeah.
when he ran on what was it, the All American Party or whatever the hell it was called.
Was it party?
Ross
Oh,
Perot's
was it the Reform Party? Yeah, it was Reform Party. Ross Perot's Party. That's right.
Yeah, and so this has been one of the longest long games I've ever seen in politics.
Although you could kind of argue that after that bid, he didn't really care about politics because he immediately went to Mark Burnett and said, "Hey, I want to do a show with you."
Right, but he was also
constant.
but he was also constantly on Fox News and other places like that promoting his agenda, which is kind of like a long, slow burn towards whatever seeds he was sowing. He was seeing what would sprout. Like he'd just throw the seeds on the ground and see what sprouted up.
And if you recall, when he started to do that birther thing, it was on, Today. It was on The View. It was on those places.
Right.
And it was part of the tour for the show, the upcoming season of The Apprentice. So
right. But I'm saying, like I said, he's throwing down this. He's been throwing down the seeds for 15 years before he announced his candidacy.
Yeah. And quite frankly, if you look back at the polls of 2012, people wanted him to run in 2012, but he was too cowardly to run against Obama himself. He wanted to take all the spotlight,
Well, then, because Obama could have crucified him on the birther thing,
which just like he did at that correspondence dinner the night he killed OBL, which should have been the end of him, but unfortunately, white America.
right?
But
we can never get away from it, can we?
no, I mean, we cannot. No, well, yeah, we can, but at the same time, we can't, because if we do, we could let another version of this fester. It won't be as potent. It won't be as strong. It won't be as Trump. But
Okay.
it'll still be a mutation.
No, I think that's
Unfortunately, it might be a little bit more subtle incompetence.
Okay, time out.
But the problem is that you can't have subtle incompetent Trump
Time
without
out.
double Trump.
Time out.
Yeah,
Adam was going to say something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Also, that
that
wasn't what I
doesn't
was saying. That also wasn't what
Yeah.
I was saying.
It's like, that doesn't work because the craven and the crafty don't really have the charisma to pull off what Trump does, because they're always trying to think of the consequences. Because these motherfuckers are out there and they're Josh Haley and Ted Cruz. These are the calculating motherfuckers
Holly.
who are trying to be.
I thought it was Holly. Sorry.
It is Holly, but whatever.
Whatever it
I do
is.
not give a shit how his name is pronounced. Like,
I'm from the state he's from, and I don't give a
We've
shit.
been on a podcast with Adam long enough to have given up trying to correct him every time he gets a name wrong.
But it's like, but that's what I was actually getting at, is that, is that there are clearly people who want to be like Trump. The problem is they don't have the television game show, or not game show, reality show. Like, I don't want to call it a game show because it's not a game show. Reality show host charisma, the, face of greed and wealth for 25, 30 years, that he had. You can't, Holly, Cruz, Haley, all of the Cotton, all of these pretenders. You listen to them, they're not Trump at all. They,
How could they be?
Well, they sound like him, but the problem is that the tone, the delivery is bland and boring as hell.
And also, they also have the lack of arrogance from wealth.
Yeah, it's like
or rather, wealthy lifestyle.
Like, today in the Senate, amongst other things, Marco Rubio did a speech talking about talking about political correctness and both sidesism and all this type of stuff. Very Trumpian in mind. But the problem is that the way he delivered the speech was bland and boring.
Yeah,
like it put you to sleep. And that's the problem here, is that, you cannot deliver the Trumpian stuff in terms of policy and everything else, while at the same time, and not have the charisma, the on-camera presence, the presence, that, say what you will, Trump had, and Trump knew how to hypnotize people.
Yeah.
On a more
These people couldn't even live in that dimension.
on a more basic level, you can't manufacture charisma in general. It's
No.
That was the
Yeah.
joke that I made when they gave the same advice to McConnell. He was like, well, because his strategist was all like, well, you know, because they were talking about Trump's charisma and all that stuff and how he bewitched the Republican Party, and they were like, well, how can we do the same? And he's like, well, basically, you gotta, and I'm like, dude, your interpretation of this is bullshit. The simple fact of the matter is that he spent 30 years forcing his whale proportioned ass into the public eye
Yeah.
through sheer narcissistic grit.
Through grit, through greed, through
He was the negative embodiment of the American dream.
Yeah, he was the embodiment of New York greed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a Florida guy now, but he built his brand on being the embodiment of a rich New Yorker.
Well, it's appropriate. It
was Trump.
Don't you think it's appropriate that he's a Florida guy now that he's gone, full crazy?
Oh yeah, I mean it's the Al Capone.
He's the wealthy on paper version of Florida, man.
It's the whole Al Capone thing, because let's be fair, Trump acted during his presidency like a mob boss from Queens. Period. That's what he was.
Yeah.
He acted like a mob boss. He made his presidency and his whole thing basically a mob style operation. Plain and simple. And, now that he's out of power and he doesn't have the power anymore, and he's trying to avoid tax charges, he's trying to avoid prosecution, where does he go? Florida. You want to know who else went to Florida to try to avoid the rap? Al Capone.
No, he was released because of syphilis.
Oh, well, still, he went to Florida.
Well, I mean, Trump could probably get the gout.
Hey, you never know.
They call that they don't call that the rich man's disease for nothing, right?
I mean, he's not in the presidency anymore, so you don't know what'll happen. I mean, hell, LBJ died a couple of years after he left office, so you never know.
Also, another problem with the whole another Trump will rise is from which base? Because one of the things that's going to be troubling the Republican Party is Trump broke one of their central ethos. And that was, they put party above of country and everything else. Party. Trump put himself over everyone else. So he's got a cult of personality. The Republican Party does not.
No.
And
Trump, and what Trump brought was, again, a solid, firm 30 to 35%.
Mm-hmm.
Like 30 to 35%. Now, apparently there was some polls that said he was down to 28, 29, but that's still 28, 29, 30. That's a huge chunk of the electorate and the population right there, So no other candidate can match that strong, firm base. Like everybody else is basically put together, like stapled together. Trump's base was firm.
And to compound things further, it's not like he's a loyal GOPer or he won't attack.
He never was.
No, it's like he's probably going to go, full bore against those that he perceived didn't fight for him.
I mean,
the irony would be as if he went full bore behind the Democrats because.
No, he's not getting. Well, actually, apparently, what he was apparently kicking around in the last 2 weeks was, yes, starting a third political party, and called the Patriot Party, which, by the way, was the name of a party in the 1960s that was aligned with the Rainbow Coalition of Fred Hampton.
Oh God.
Yeah. Tell that to the right wingers there, Oh, and it's also apparently the logo they've been kicking around for this party is one of a lion.
Like,
Yeah, the Brits and the Brits look at that and go, "Wait, what?"
like, oh boy, like a Trumpian third
Oh
party.
boy, if
Yeah, I'm like,
that's even better.
yeah,
Don't-
like
Can
go
you
ahead.
say? Can you say vote split?
Oh yeah.
Let me
I'm
tell,
like, I'm
let me
thinking
tell you.
home of-
Let me tell
yeah,
you,
I'm
a
thinking home
Patriot
of
Party
right
versus Republican Party, a Patriot Party versus Republican Party deal, that would be worse than Democrats versus Greens, because the Green Party just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's a snake oil selling thing. The
what would
Patriot Party, if it becomes real, that would definitely eat into the Republican Party.
yeah, what would the Greens do against the Dems ever? Like,
They don't even
I-
know what they're about.
Yeah,
I
they are
think
the worst. They are the worst. They are a Green Party, which other Green parties across the world look at and go, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, I'm like
Because
the Green.
it's worth repeating here. The Green Party of the United States of America is a joke. It is a fraud, and there are Green parties all across the world who do things that the Green Party of the United States would absolutely throw up at the concept of, which is to govern, to help govern, to build governments. You tell an American Green that, they'll look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah,
Oh my.
like
But anyway,
You know, it's like the old Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
it's been the motto ever since Barack Obama was elected president. In all honesty,
well, it's
like,
like
nothing, and it all led up to the last 4 years. And now that he's gone, we're basically going to spend the next couple of months just, building for the future and also cleaning up the past.
Absolute Zero, I'm sorry. Several of your comments got held for moderation and I didn't spot it, so I apologize for that.
like
Anyhow,
and yeah, so the question is, what's next? What's up ahead? Well, a lot of stuff, but the main thrust is going to be COVID relief.
Yep.
Biden is going to invoke the Defense Protection Act to actually get some federal distribution of the vaccine going here.
yeah, basically to put boots and asses and get things going here, because it turns out that Operation Warp Speed thing was a total crock.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise, yes.
Like, now that we have adults in the room again, we can actually get some actual shit done.
Yeah, basically the people at CDC and HHS who have just come in the building are pretty much, as we speak right now, pretty much digging in to figure out what the hell they were doing and how the hell do we fix it.
Right. And on the congressional side, we'll be seeing the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. And it's worth noting, this isn't just sending out $1,400 checks. This is actually a very comprehensive financial package on some long dreamt of progressive policy goals.
Ideas, $15 an hour minimum wage.
This is going to be the biggest thing since the New Deal.
Well,
a big one is disabled workers can no longer be paid sub-tip wages. Which is
that's a big one, considering that one of the biggest issues for people with disabilities is the fact that it's the fact that the amount of money you're allowed to have on disability and earn on and stay and get disability aid is not enough.
And it also would have a intensive program to cut child poverty in half.
I would just appreciate it if the damn Department of Economic Security here in Arizona would answer the fucking phone.
When your governor's Doug Ducey, you get what you know. It happens.
I mean, his name says it all.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's the he's the double deuce, folks.
Yep. But now, of course, the question is going to become: is reconciliation going to have to be done here? And if so, what gets cut out? Because there's going to have to be some things, if we have to get to the point where reconciliation is required, that things are going to have to be cut out.
We'll
And,
see what
and the
yeah.
and the possibility exists that if it goes to that route, you can say goodbye to $15 an hour. I'm going to say that right now, because that can't be done by reconciliation.
Probably not. Like, well,
Yeah.
reconciliation actually
Take
like
it
has to go through a lot of financial processes. It's not just
Right.
a secret.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That that's why I'm saying that isn't going to get to that point. We don't know that yet. So
That being said, so here's the thing: we actually have two reconciliations in the chamber, so to speak, and we could, because Congress didn't do a reconciliation last year, and that actually rolls over. So
I don't know if that's the case. Actually, from what I've heard, you can only do it once a year, and there's no rollover. But I mean, if
I've
there is a
heard
rollover,
differently.
well, I guess we'll see then.
Right. So, yeah, I have heard that reconciliation can happen again if you don't use it that year. Maybe that isn't the case, but this is just what I've heard. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, we'll see. We'll see if that's the case.
Still, at the very least, if there's a reconciliation thing to be done, it's with this.
Yes, absolutely, no question about it. I mean, if
anyway,
it's gonna be for anything, it's gonna be for COVID relief.
Anyway, so doubling back on a thing I was talking about earlier, and among people who were not pardoned, a big group of people were not pardoned, and that is the insurrectionists. Yeah, it's like,
oh man, but so many of them sent all of their personal information on Parler so that he could get their information so he could pardon them directly.
Not getting pardoned also.
I applaud you for stumbling through that joke. I applaud you for making it all the way through.
And the fact that and the fact that they didn't get pardoned only added to the joy of today.
Indeed.
And and
more people. Speaking of apps, you can now only get by side loading them.
Yeah, because apparently Parler is back up, and guess what? It's being hosted by Russia.
Of course.
Yep.
So
it's actually not just Russia. It's also the people who are behind that other, right wingers go to get away from Twitter site Gab.
Absolute Zero now says Joe Exotic being stiff for a pardon was pretty funny.
Yeah,
but he even got the fucking monster truck limo out and everything.
Oh, what a great limo bill to pay off, huh? Pay up, Buttercup.
Yep. Now, as far as the rioters go, they're still being arrested. I think they picked up some more people today, and they
they got a Proud Boy today.
I thought it was one of the Oath Keepers.
No, Joe Biggs was a Proud Boy.
Okay. I'm like, and also people are wondering why they are getting charged with what they are being charged. So that has to do with how felonies are done in the federal level. So felonies have to be done in front of a grand jury. Like if you get a criminal complaint, misdemeanors don't need that. Plus, the misdemeanor stuff is much more rapidly provable than, say, in most cases, like conspiracy or sedition. It's just in this case, these
lower burden of proof.
Yeah, these motherfuckers have literally been on camera saying this is fucking sedition, this is a fucking revolution, so that means it's insurrection. The Legal Eagle video on this was quite the amazing thing. Oh boy, these may be the dumbest criminals I have ever seen.
That's why he has that graphic of him just like with his arms above his head holding his forehead. I saw the preview for that video and I was just like, I don't know if I can sit through this. It's too much.
But it's true. It's like they've got they are on the video saying, confessing to the crimes.
Yeah, like, they're completely not covered. They use their names. They say their location of home address.
They fucking broadcasted their asses. Go.
You know what? Let me say this. That's the difference between right-wing protesters and left-wing protesters. Because left-wing protesters, when you see them, they're always covered up.
Oh God! These motherfuckers brought their actual fucking cell phones to the protest. Okay, first rule of protest.
Locate my iPhone.
Yeah, you do not bring your actual phone to a protest. You bring a burner because the cops can triangulate that shit.
Well, to be specific, they brought their cell phones into the Capitol building, which has the technology to pick these out. No,
there was also apparently someone who was there with a fucking ankle bracelet on from a previous offense.
So. Oh Jesus!
Yeah, there were some people that were out on the But at the same time, it's like when you talk about left-wing protesters, they're usually like outside in the street where there's not this kind of technology that can track you in a coordinated way. They have to like pick off one or two people. When you're in the Capitol building, there is the technology inside of that building that gets your phone, especially if you have location services left on, by the way.
You know, it just goes to show. It just goes to show that a complete lack of understanding is not merely a politician thing; it's a right-wing thing.
No, of course.
Frankly, it's an American thing.
No.
I would say there was more than just right wingers that don't have a sense of.
I think a lot of them were just not used to not having the government on their side.
No, let me tell you right now, stupid is fucking universal. Stupid is fucking worldwide. America is not unique.
Yeah. You're right.
But this was extra. This was extra.
No, I should rephrase that and say it's a human thing.
Yeah.
It's not just. I would say it's not a right wing thing. It's a human thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once again, as you pointed out, the left wing protesters knew they were being tracked from jump. The right wingers were just like, I'm white and it's not going to get me.
Yeah. Left wing protesters, they have protesting down to a science at this point.
It's probably because there are more disenfranchised amongst the left wing. They're used to getting the raw deal.
Well, it's also because, and there was a study about this that just came out not too long ago. Police are three times more likely to use force against leftists, and even more so if they're non-white.
I mean, and even before 1/6, you saw this, like, going back to like WTO in the 90s and further than that, and you see left-wing protests, civil rights protests, anti-capitalist protests, so on and so forth. There's always violence. There's always tear gas. There's always this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, when you think about protests
the
involving
WTO riots were
my favorite was the guy who got ID'd on the street in real time by Twitter.
Yeah, but it's like at the same time, you think of like armed carry protests, which have been around for a good number of decades, and other kinds of right-wing protests, Tea Party, etc. Nothing.
Yeah,
they just let them all hang out. Even though in a lot of these protests, they literally have and are going around with AK-47s.
But they weren't going. But Kevin, they weren't going after the puppets of the deep state that time. They were just standing around, carrying TV torches and looking like morons.
Yeah.
They couldn't even have a joy bonfire correctly.
Yeah. So it's like
I call that a dollar store Nazi rally.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, but yeah, it's like, left-wing protesters.
By the way, folks, that's a 2 for reference right there, just so you know.
Left-wing protesters have protesting down to a science because they're always in on the action. Right-wing protesters are allowed to let it all hang out, so they have the feeling, going into 1/6, that the government, the police, law enforcement, etc., are on their side. And then all of a sudden, when they're faced with police that are trying to push them back, they're faced with police that are actively trying to stop them, they're called traitors. They're beaten up. And even though they beat up police officers and law enforcement, they're allowed to continue to do so and are only pushed back without the high level use of tear gas. Yes, they were flash bombed a couple times. Yes, tear gas was used, but only a small little bit. If that was a left-wing protest, if that was a majority black, brown, Muslim protest, I will tell you now, there would be blood on the streets of Washington, D.C., and there would be blood inside of the Capitol building. It wouldn't be just broken glass. It wouldn't be just busted open doors. It would be literal blood. And we all know that. And we need to remember that fact. And thankfully, all of this is over. We
Indeed.
can all move on with our lives for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
But don't
And no one's
relax.
saying-
No, I'm
Yeah.
just saying. No,
one's
it's
saying
not like take our foot off the gas. We're not going to take our foot off the gas because, we got to make these 2 years count.
Yeah, no one's saying.
And
that
and
we
here's a
do
better
what we
here's a better idea. Let's extend it beyond 2 years for once. Let's compel the Democrats to actually hold on to the houses of Congress for more than 2 years.
I'm only saying at least. I'm only
Yeah.
saying at least 2 years, not just 2 years. I'm saying at least.
No, I know
Because-
that, but I'm saying we need to put the pressure on the Democratic Party to make sure that they don't take the foot off the gas because of the
No.
fact that that's what they always do, and that's what prompted the Jeff Daniels speech at the beginning of the newsroom.
Right. That's
See-
it's like that's why I'm saying we need to make these 2 years count, because if we make these 2 years count, then we can go to the midterms in 2022 with something to show for it.
Right, because
Right.
it's like every time they get in power, they just go now back to business as usual, and it's like, really?
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that in terms of 2019, 2020, 2010, with the ACA and all of that noise.
Yeah,
We lost the house because of that.
yeah, 2009, 2010 was actually a lot of shit got passed, and
It was
2010
unpopular,
was
we lost the
spent all our
house.
capital on the ACA.
Yeah.
Because
We
they
also-
spent it all on the wrong things.
No, we first spent it on the Recovery Act for that first year, for that first like 6-7 months. That was the first big thing we did. That was kind of unpopular, but then we went to healthcare, and that was mega unpopular, and we lost the House. And then we eventually lost the Senate because of residual effects from that.
That being said, there is no doubt that the Democrats, the Democratic base, they actually did relax after Obama was elected, and it's just like, job well done. We don't have to do anything.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't relax. It wasn't relax. It was, you're not doing it as much as we want you to do. We want you to go harder. We want you to not accept this corporate ACA. We want you to do single payer or public option.
Well,
Right.
That sort of thing.
Never mind the fact that Obama personally had one of the most progressive agendas of a U.S. president in modern history, and on top of that, it was a 450-point legislative agenda that was stymied by losing the House.
But don't tell them that.
Well, yeah,
Don't
this
tell
is
them
one of the many reasons I hate very online leftists, because they want all policy done against a leftist ideal, and anything less is not acceptable. And
Right, it's wishy-washy. It's sellout. Specifically sellout.
it's also not practical. Like,
Yes.
there are people who are whinging about the $15 minimum wage thing, not because it's too much, but because it's too little. That it was like that would have worked a decade ago, but now it should be like 20. And I'm like, motherfucker, we ain't even over there yet. And you're complaining about
Doing
being
15 an hour protests you were doing 15 and these people were doing 15, fight for 15 protests as late as like what, last year before.
Yeah, my point is, we're not even at the $15 mark yet.
And the cities that have implemented a citywide minimum wage of $15 an hour are thriving.
Yeah, like
Because that's
So,
how that
so,
works.
so the economic theories that boost the minimum wage end up screwing people and causing jobs to go away. I mean, California eked its way up to an $11.50, $11, $12 an hour minimum wage. We actually passed one here in Arizona by proposition. The state of people are not leaving the state of Arizona in droves,
No.
which is shocking. We got a fucking $12 an hour minimum wage in Arizona.
yeah,
It took 4 years to get there because
mean,
it was an incremental increase. But
and of course, this goes into the whole deal of voters supporting progressive ideas, but at the same time supporting candidates and politicians who want those ideas in the garbage.
well, that's because out of our 8 major counties here in Arizona, only 2 of them are blue.
But it's like, you support the concept of $15 an hour minimum wage, or or at least a higher minimum wage than you
I'm
already
sorry,
have.
11. We have 11 electoral votes. That means we have 11 counties because we have 11 representatives.
Right, but it's like, but what I'm getting at is like, you support raising minimum wage, you support marijuana legalization, you support all of these progressive ideologies, and yet at the same time, because of whatever else, you support these conservatives and these Republicans who
That's
want that.
because all of the rural areas in this state are dominated by old people.
Well,
Don't like changes and don't like the loud music of the young people and all that dumb shit.
but at the same exact time, a lot of these old people apparently are voting for these policies at the same time.
No, they voted. A large portion of them voted against it. What's interesting is how many ballots were the down ballot issues were left blank in Arizona.
Thing too. It's like, you could do this in your home states, but if you don't vote for it there, what are you doing? But I mean, look, we know that for the next 2 years, at 2 years we have to hit the ground running, and we need to put a policy and put a agenda together that isn't just talk.
right.
And if we do that, if the economy improves because COVID is brought to at least somewhat bare, and so on and so forth, we may have a chance. But at the same time, redistricting may be a problem that costs us the House alone.
Sadly, Arizona is also a bit of a prison right now because of the fact that we have the highest COVID contraction rate in the nation right now because of all the anti-masker dipshits that live in my state.
That's the thing we're going to be thinking about also, is that with these vaccines that are going to be coming out, anti-vax will be a problem.
Listen, and if my Uber customers in the U of A area are any indication, it's a lot of these out of state chads and brads who like showing up at the frat parties in the middle of a pandemic.
Entitled.
Mm-hmm.
Entitled white people are a problem.
A menace.
A menace. They were a menace to society before this. They're a menace to. They're even more so now.
Well, it is the divide and conquer strategy of the elites, though, and that is to take those who feel like they're entitled to something and turn them against those who have nothing.
Yeah.
And that's really what this amounts to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it pains me to say it, like the anti-vaxxer stuff is a problem in minority communities for different reasons, like
more deep state propaganda. The whole these vaccines are designed to control and kill you.
Well, in the case of like say black people and indigenous people, there's more credibility there because
historically they were experimented on.
Yeah,
right.
like
I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that point at all.
Yeah.
Trust me on that one. They're all, those folks are all part of that whole those who feel they're owed something being turned against those who have nothing.
Yeah, and
Right.
there's also certain sections that are against the vaccine because it might use, fetal tissue and, anti-abortion.
Yeah.
It's like,
Or
but the fetuses were already dead. What's the harm now?
They're
or
fetuses.
the like or the propaganda is being spread to immigrant communities. Like I remember there was a disease outbreak among Somali immigrants in Minnesota
Yeah.
because of anti-vaxxer bullshit and
Yep.
propaganda.
Yep.
So, this thing started as a white problem, but not surprisingly, it's spread over to
It's fed by
other
white
communities.
people.
Yeah.
It's fed by them.
However, one of the largest minority groups in this nation is people who qualify as disabled or differently abled, and that's another thing that's constantly overlooked because that's an invisible minority.
Yep.
Because
Hello.
because disability does not know race.
Yep.
It doesn't know party. It doesn't know economic status.
Yeah, but
Yep.
a lot of racial minorities, for lack of a better term, have very good reasons to be extremely skeptical about government projects, seeing as how they have been victimized by government projects. in the
I
past.
understand that, but people on this podcast and even people in this house right here are constantly struggling against a system that is telling them to haul themselves up by the bootstraps that will ultimately bury them.
Yeah, I'm literally doing that right now. Fucking SSI bullshit going on.
Oh, we heard you once sold a painting for $10, so now we're going to have to dock your disability payments.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have to reevaluate your SSI while you're not getting paid for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you have to
Anyway.
pray you're not in a red district, so that way you can get a politician on your side who will grease the wheels, so to speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, we
And
should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
all right,
I think we've broken down all that we need to this week, and
let's do just a couple minutes of entertainment news, and then we'll wrap up. How's that sound?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean,
I'm-
is there really anything?
yes, and we gotta fucking address this because fuck you, Inuyasha.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Oh boy.
Let me just
Okay.
state. Let me just specifically state for the record that when the moment that this series, this spin-off, this not spin-off, sequel series was announced, it was pretty damn clear that what ended up happening. It was there should have been no, illusions that it was anybody else. It was pretty damn clear what the situation was.
What, you mean the human that Sesshomaru's daughter is the mother of Sesshomaru's daughter is the only human he ever had a "I'm killing you now" interaction with in the entire goddamn series?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the only way it would have been any different is if they created an OC, which they could have done. They could have done that, or
Hmm.
I'm like,
it was something that happened with Kagura off screen or something of that nature.
Kagura
but
was
no,
not human.
Yeah, so Rumiko Takahashi not being good with the sexual politics is not a surprise.
Yeah.
But this is
And
one
also,
of
really, if you're looking at relationships between a demon and a human, grooming is really not on the bad half of ways that interaction can go.
so
It's no. It's still bad. It's terrible.
yeah.
Just
So there's
Oh.
been some debate in that direction of the whole, hundreds of year old monsters. Because it's not in that case, it's not just Inuyasha. Like this is fucking vampires, literally. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah. Not to put a fine of a point on it, but one of the reasons they're considered demons is because they usually like to eat people.
Right, but okay. So why do people not have a problem with Inuyasha and Kagome if they didn't have that problem overall? It's because of Inuyasha's state, as it were.
yeah.
He's however many hundreds, but for realistic purposes, he is framed as a teenager. He's coded as a teenager.
Right, and he's
For that matter, Kagome is coded as a teenager, and she is a teenager, but she's a younger teenager than I think a lot of people really
That's kind of
acknowledge.
like
No. The difference really is that Inuyasha is supposed to be, the more human. It's basically coded as more human, especially with that human form he has with the new moon.
I don't
Like,
even think it has that much to do with human. I think it just has to be he's coded as being about as mature, about a same level of maturity. Although I would argue that it's less about how immature he is and more about how not prepubescent Kagome is when they meet.
they're basically, Inuyasha's
Okay.
coded as a teenager.
Well-
Kagome is a teenager. They're basically, in all,
Yeah.
in the rules and standards of everything else, basically the same age.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah. To
That's
boil
different
it
from
down,
this.
Inuyasha and Kagome are a teenage romance couple. It's just, one of them happens to be technically hundreds of years old or whatever stuff.
But he's basically of the same age, or is basically, portrayed as the same age as Kagome. That is completely
Sushromo,
and totally
he-
different
yeah,
from
Su-
adult ancient demon, a clear adult ancient demon, and a young prepubescent child. That is the difference.
Honestly, you could make a significant argument that at some point in the future it'll be kind of creepy with with Kagome to still be in a relationship with Inuyasha because she'll be middle aged and he'll still look 15.
Okay, maybe so, but the fact of the matter is that they probably wouldn't be having children by then.
I don't know.
Fair enough.
Women can have children when they're middle aged.
Well, I
It's
think
also the
they probably
feudal
would.
era.
But
Look,
anyway.
Look,
Although
yeah,
apparently she looks the same at apparently 37 as she does at 15. So
Yeah.
look, trying to get anime to age cute girls is like
Yeah.
almost an
So
impossibility.
the reason that
Yeah.
Sesshomaru and Rin is creepy is because Rin was a child when
Yes.
they met, and she had a
It was a very
extremely
much a
non-power balanced relationship with him for a long time, which is what makes it
master servant.
grooming.
Master servant.
Right.
That's what that relationship was. And then all of a sudden,
He also like pretty much on a whim made her not die.
yeah, it was basically master servant situation for a long, long damn time. But for some ungodly reason, internet fandom decided to ship these two, and here we are.
I don't think it has anything to do with internet fandom.
Oh, it has
Yeah.
a lot to do with it.
Maybe
I mean, I know
so,
there
but
is internet fandom, but I don't think that has any
Yeah.
actual bearing on the situation.
It has something to do with it
Why?
because I mean, because there's an audience for it, and if there wasn't an audience for it, she wouldn't do it.
I disagree with that. I think
yeah.
if I think Takahashi was probably thinking this would at least had some idea of that the whole time, and certainly by the time like it's not like this is some surprise to anyone
Yeah.
involved in
Look.
the series.
That being said, this is not the first sex crime that this series has ever committed. Hell, the entire character of Moroku should have been sucked up in the wind tunnel first appearance. And I stand by that. Because he's like my gold standard for awful, awful sexual harassment characters. He's even worse than, like, say, Ataru or Hapusai, other Rumiko Takahashi sexual assaulters, because Ataru is a complicated case we don't have time to go into, but Hapusai is at least the villain of that series. Moroku is like the supporting hero who goes around, sexually assaulting and harassing women on a regular basis. And that's supposed to be okay, and I'm supposed to
And
root
he
for it.
certainly gets beaten up less than Ataru did.
Yeah, he gets beaten up, but it's like that doesn't make that good. That just
Oh.
Trying to put a little capstone on what you did here.
Yeah.
It's a trope I've never liked, and it's why I've never liked Moroku.
But I mean, but that's a completely different situation than what we got
I get
here.
that. I get that. I'm just saying that this isn't a thing that sprung out of nowhere.
I don't think it's on the level, to be quite frank.
No. And it's like
Because
and
for a lot of that is meant to be comedy. Yes, cringe comedy, but comedy nonetheless.
Right.
This
right.
is not.
Also,
this is
it was
comedy
not
at
a
all.
super uncommon form of comedy back in the time when Inuyasha
right,
was a thing.
Yeah,
Even
right.
then it was starting to die off then, but
it was still a thing. It was still a thing, but it was a comedic. It was a comedic situation.
Right.
This is not.
Yeah, this is probably the most egregious that a Takahashi series has gotten that I know of. Granted, I haven't read Rini yet.
I mean, there's none. You
Petty.
don't hear that about that show.
Do what?
Check your DMs.
Dare I ask?
But yeah, I mean, I'm basically only continuing to follow this series because of the other child that's a part of this equation that is not involved with Shishomaru at all.
I mean, it has.
But yeah,
the kids can. The fact that their parents' relationship is creepy is nothing particular against the kids in theory.
Yeah, but it makes it hard. But the thing,
or Setsuna's fault that this happened.
Yeah, it's not their fault, but at the same time, it makes it hard for you to get into it. You know, it kind of makes it hard. It kind of makes it hard because it's like you're gonna enjoy this, but on the other hand, it's like, oh my god, that's right. These two parents are that. Because the whole point.
I recognize that this is not like good, but I've seen a Clamp series ever, so I'm a little bit desensitized to this point.
Oh god, we do not have
But the whole point of this series really is for Setsuna, Toa, and Moroha to basically find their parents and recover their memories and all this type of stuff. That's the whole point of the series.
I guess.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the
I
series.
really thought the point of the series was more, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did more Inuyasha? But we kind of wrapped that up. I know, do their kids instead.
But see, that's only the case if this was longer. This is basically supposed to be, what, 24 episodes, if I recall correctly? So, it's like the whole point of the series is for them to find their parents. So it makes it hard for you to get into it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely more back and forth to have on this, but we should probably wrap it.
Basically, I get that you have an issue with it, but I'm surprised at the strength of the issue you have with it, considering how obvious it's been for how long.
Look, I'm still rolling with this series. I'm not like some of these people who are wanting to cut it off completely because of this. I'm still wanting to roll with this because I want to see where it goes. Because I want to be a completist. I usually am, you know. So,
okay,
that's a big difference. But yeah, let's cut this off of here because we're getting close to 12:30.
Got a couple things real quick here. Obviously, still promoting the Twitch channel. Stop by Mac Paladin's Retro Gaming Emporium, and of course, Fragments of Silicon on Twitch. Mac Paladin's Retro Gaming Emporium is twitch.com/Mac Paladin. Mac like macaroni, not MAX like Max. And of course, well, you know where to find Fragments of Silicon.
Right.
Yeah, it's
most of you here are it is what sustains most of you who are here.
But in case you're new to the show, it's twitch.tv, twitchtv.com/fragmentsilicon. Like,
no, it is twitch.tv, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
TV.
It's twitch.tv, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
We are on the. This is important for the YouTube crowd, though. We are restoring the MSP archive. We found over 100 lost episodes on Wayback Machine, including the fabled Larry Latham interview, which I've already reformatted and put up on Facebook. But we are going to do a little bit more formal of a thing with some animations, to where it will have episode title, season, episode number, who's in it, if they're alive or dead, and original air date.
Yeah, maybe also some warnings about certain people.
Assuming that we find, I'm going to go ahead and say it on the air since he's already deceased. If we find the Jew Wario episode, or we find the the Team Meat episodes, which I believe we have. One of them we lost that I was very sad about was the Drow Tales one. It simply does not exist anywhere in the archive. We actually found the the TS catalog number for TalkShoe, and because Jan, the creator of Drow Tales, had still has it in his blog archive from 2010, and a link to it, and we couldn't find it at all. It's just gone, and that's too bad. But we found a lot of stuff. I have the entirety of seasons 7 and 8 from our live stream time. There are some episode segments that are just dates that need to be stitched together. It's a clusterfuck, but we're getting there.
To put it lightly.
Yeah. I have a special title card that we've created in After Effects to separate Moonhawk Studios Presents Classic from the revival in 2015. Because seasons 1 through 9 were the original run, and then seasons 10, 11, and 12, which are already here on YouTube, were the revival. And that's completely separate from MSPR, which we're still experimenting with. So, if anybody follows my adult alter ego, you can follow me playing more Sacred Sword Princess on Plex Storm shortly. I need to go wash my feet. I'm not going to tell people my health problems on the air, but here we are.
Probably went a little too far already.
Yeah, probably went a little too far, but yeah, gonna wash my feet and contemplate my life briefly before I go to work tonight. So, but I think this was a pretty good show. We had a lot to talk about, and I was entertained. I hope you all were. And on behalf of the crew at the last news desk on the left, I almost called us MSP. I'm Mac Paladin saying thanks for listening and stay safe out there, kids.